Western Myth Records proudly presents Wild Earp Saves Christmas, a radio drama.
Now, did I ever tell you about the time that Earp saved Christmas? Well, I guess he saved Christmas for some and then ruined Christmas for some others, but anyway. See, we was touring in the Southwest around the holidays, on account of it being warm there, and Earp planned we'd make a little extra with people in a spending mood. We had finished a string of successful shows, and everyone was in high spirits. We had a particularly long haul ahead of us to the next town, and Barrel made the suggestion that we drive overnight to avoid traffic on the road and get to the next town with plenty of time to relax and enjoy the festive environs. We all thought that made sense, and Earp gave his blessing. So the whole jolly bunch jumped into the wagon and we set out riding. See, in them days, the trains didn't hit every little town, so Earp would rent a wagon and we'd take turns on the reins. We got to see a lot of the country that way. And so we were off, and the mood was convivial. We popped open some beer and began a-singing.
We wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, go away. Yeah! Oh, crazy, world, the beer has come. Let us receive our beer.
Oh, we had a good old time. And before long, everyone was noddling off to sleep.
One more round, bartender.
At some point in the middle of the night, we heard a loud crack.
What on God's scorched earth is going on?
Looks like the wheel's busted.
Did you hit something?
Not that I can tell.
What was all that?
A wheel broke.
What happened?
Broken wheel.
Let's get some more light on it.
Upon closer inspection, it became clear how bad it actually was. 3 spokes were broken, 2 of them shattered, several of the hub rivets were missing, and the steel tire was badly bent.
Well, wheels can be replaced. No one was injured. There's just a minor hiccup. Let's find that spare and switch it out.
And so we set out to find the spare. George had slept through the whole thing, but he was roused with some doing, and the whole drunk crew pulled every last thing out of the wagon. There was nary a scrap left of paper in that wagon, and still no spare. It was hypothesized that the tire was pulled out when we were loading the wagon up after the last show, but never put back in. And with it, the emergency kit we always brought with us, in which was kept the tools, the rope, and the map. This revelation was like a tinder to the powder keg, and the entire scene blew up into expletives and finger-pointing.
Horse bit!
This was not the finest hour for Wild Earp and the free-for-alls.
Look, I don't know who
Wild became wild.
Happened.
Sass became sassier. And Valentine became blue.
What's the point of having a spare if you don't bring it with you?
When the dust settled, it was decided that we would set up camp and deal with it in the morning. Now, you may or may not know how cold it can get in the desert at night, but it was mighty uncomfortable. We woke up hungover, sore, and in a tangle of blankets and bodies. Since we had planned to be in Santa Fe by the afternoon of the next day, there were relatively few provisions. Our breakfast consisted of beef jerky and oat bars, and that did not improve spirits any, I can tell you.
Okay, so we don't know where we are. Our means of conveyance has been rendered useless, and we've very little water.
After some debate, Earp decided that the most important thing to do was to find water.
Okay, everybody take an empty beer bottle or 2 and we'll split up. Sass, why don't you head west with DB? Take one of those horses and ride as far as you can down the road till midday. Hopefully we'll come to a town or settlement of some kind.
Now, they weren't yet married in this point of history, but they were sweethearts, and this pairing was expected. Oh, by the way, everyone had nicknames in the band, and Sass's full title was Sweet Sassy Molassey. But Earp called her Sass for short. On these tours, often as the only female among several flatulent and often foul-mouthed fellers, the sweetness could wear off quickly. As dulcet as she could be in the word and deed, she was also sharp as a tack, and everyone was a little bit afraid of her. DB stood for double barrel. Many thought it had something to do with a shotgun, but the name actually came from his tendency to turn just about anything into a drum, including empty beer or whiskey barrels.
Dollhouse boys, why don't you head north?
The Dollhouse Boys were Gorgeous George and Ponyboy. They got this name one day on tour while staying up with Earp's sister, Angie Oakley. She put 'em up in a fancy guest room with frilled lace on every imaginable surface, which earned them a proper roasting and a new moniker. In addition to that, these two made good bunkmates, as they were the tidiest of free-for-alls, always managing to stay well-groomed while on the road.
Valentine, you hike down south with me. Mulberry, you stay here with the wagon and see if there's anything to be done with that wheel.
Wait a minute, Earp. You said hike. Why not ride? We still have a horse left.
Yeah, I want to leave a horse behind for Mulberry in case he encounters hostiles. That'll at least give him a sporting chance of getting away.
This last bit was even more sobering than the desert morning sun, which was now beginning to beat down upon us. As the Wild Earp might suggest, he was often unpredictable and inconsistent. This was the case in all things, except for the loyalty to his friends. The weight of everyone's life in his hands made him uncharacteristically cautious, at least at first.
We're grounded with his busted wheel. Dang it all, but I guess this tour's done for. Let's just try to get home safe.
By Christmas?
I promise
Earp never promised anything.
to try to get you home by Christmas.
Well, we know what that means.
For as bad as things always seemed to go, for as notoriously problematic as these tours often were, for as little return on his investments that he got from making music, Earp was still somehow optimistic. If you doubled his projected timelines and tripled the amount of money everything would cost, you'd be pretty close to the actual final account.
I think it can be done.
That ain't pang-wangling Earp. In 5 days?
Right.
Well, let's get started. We're burning daylight.
Everyone went off in their separate ways, and I stayed back to look after the gear and the horse, Sally, and see if I could find anything to use in this wasteland to try and fix the mangled wheel. I was none too happy about being left behind. Making matters worse was that I had no weapons with which to defend myself, other than a little bitty pocket knife. Earp only had 3 rules for touring: no contraband, no guns, and no music stands. This was usually not a problem, but it left me in a pretty vulnerable position. It wasn't long before someone did, in fact, come along the road. 2 Comancheros, who, luckily for me, were in the holiday spirit and willing to trade. My Espanol was pretty elementary, mind you, but I was able to convince them to trade me some leather strapping and a couple of jackrabbits they had nabbed earlier in the day for some of Earp's tobacco, a couple of warm beers, and some other odds and ends from the wagon. I was also able to ascertain where in the world we were. A full day and a half ride to Santa Fe. Either Earp or DB must have taken a wrong turn at some point in the night. In any case, the Comancheros had a good laugh at our predicament, wished me well, and they went on their way. Barrel and Sass were the first to arrive back at the camp. They hadn't found any water, but Sass had found some nopal paddles and some cactus fruit to prep for dinner. Earp and Valentine were the next to return, and though they hadn't found any water, they did apparently find some wood to burn for a fire.
This is great. Where'd you find wood out here?
Go ahead, Earp.
All right, it's not the best of circumstances, but we found the remains of an old wagon a ways off. I mean, like real old, ancient
And no
looking.
sign of the people who drove it?
No, but if they died there, wolves or coyotes would have dragged them off,
Oh my
so they
God.
could take their time on
I
the
mean,
carcasses.
it's real old. Eons
Wild Earp,
old.
this is absolutely the last tour I go on with you.
You've said that before.
You stay out of this. I mean it, Earp. This time is the very last. I've had it.
Come on now, just calm down.
How dare you bring me out here on Christmas Eve and I don't even get to see my
Yeah,
family.
you know what?
this year.
As the sun started to set, Earp became increasingly nervous about the whereabouts of the Dollhouse Boys. It was dark by the time that they had returned, but they came with welcome news. They had found a water source. Of course, this was tempered with the news that we had traveled half a day in the wrong direction. Used to getting bad news at this point, the free-for-alls took it all in stride. And since we had to prepare vessels for transporting water back to the camp, it was decided that the rest of the beer and liquor was to be drunk to make room for water. The jackrabbits were cooked up, along with the cacti for the vegetarians, and our famine turned into a feast. It wasn't long before the instruments came out.
Well, Earp, I think this is about as good of an occasion as any to sing Christmas in Santa Fe.
I reckon you're right, pard. 1, 2, 3. In Santa Fe they hang their garland round the cactus, poinsettias in their gardens gleaming red, and Santa may arrive with a burro team he drives. Milk and churros wait for him instead. I long for Christmas in Santa Fe, gonna melt all of my troubles away. Santa Fe's the place I long to be. It's cold up here in Minnesota, gonna trade my furs for a lot of gold. Christmas in Santa Fe is what I need. Pass me over a piping hot tortilla, fill it up with that good New Mexican filler. I'm gonna take in all the sights and sounds of that good old Santa Fe, New Mexico town. Christmas in Santa Fe, gonna melt all of my troubles away. Santa Fe's the place I long to be. Far from North and South Dakota, gonna shed my johns and my overcoat. Christmas in Santa Fe is what I need. Troubles away. Santa Fe's the place I long to be. I haven't seen the sun for days. I hate it here in so many ways. Christmas in Santa Fe is what I need. Christmas in Santa Fe is what I need. All right.
Earp, I've been meaning to tell you, but Santa Fe is pretty cold this time of year.
Yeah, actually, someone I talked to in Dallas said we might even get some snow up there.
Also, poinsettia don't grow that far north.
Well, how long in tarnal tunk were y'all gonna wait before telling me? We've been playing that song for years.
Just change up the town or something.
To what, exactly?
Tampa Bay might work.
Christmas in Tampa Bay.
It's hot there.
Yeah, but you miss all the Southwest references.
Oh, just forget it. I'll rewrite it for next year, I guess.
You ever been to Santa Fe, Earp?
I don't need to have been to a place to sing a song about it. Anyways, I plan to see it in all its snowy glory in a couple of days.
Yeah, we'll see about that one.
Sorry about your song, partner. Here, have some tequila.
Hey,
Thank you.
has anyone seen my Viper Slap?
I had traded it for the rabbits.
Or my Flexitone?
That too.
Or my Kazoo?
Yeah, also that.
Oh, tarnation! You got right generous with my belongings, didn't you, Mulberry? I didn't even get to enjoy that jackrabbit besides.
I think there's a spare Viber slap in the cajon.
Well, thank Christmas.
Did I ever tell you about the time I saw a ghost on Christmas?
Yep.
Well, I'll tell it again. I saw a ghost on Christmas, floating o'er the drift. I saw a ghost on Christmas Day, in nothing but a shift. She bade me come unto her, and join her in the air. She said, come be my partner, dance with me if you dare. And I dared, and the air swept beneath me, and we danced to the fading of the light, and the beautiful remnants of this Christmas reckoning stayed with me deep into the night. And as I looked more closely, in the half-light of the moon. I saw it was my love who had died in the flower of her youth. She leaned in close to kiss me, and in her cold embrace I saw a ghostly tear of joy stream down her perfect face. And the years just rolled off my shoulders, and my feet kicked light into the air, and we danced and spun and twirled throughout the heavens, free of all earthly care. And then I looked below us, and frozen in the drift, I saw what was my body, which now had become stiff. I must have stayed out too long in the frigid cold outside. And now if you look up on Christmas Day, you'll see me dancing with my bride.
Now, Pony, I know everyone was less than enthusiastic about getting that piano on the wagon, but I'm real glad we brought it.
Agreed.
Pass me that old jug there, would you, partner?
You know, I don't even care about not getting home for Christmas. Out here with all my friends, that feels like home to me.
Here, here.
That's a beautiful sentiment, Valentine, and I wish I could share it, but I don't want to spend another minute in this place. I want to be back in my bed in civilization without creepy crawling critters, or who knows what other godless lawlessness is out here. I think you should play I Won't Be Home for Christmas, Earp. That seems the most apropos.
I reckon so.
1, 2, 3. No, I won't be home for Christmas this year to bring you the cheer. There's nowhere fear, so I'm sending tidings to you. I'm so sad and blue out here. All my nights are silent, all of my days long. I've got no money to buy a thing, so I'm sending you this Christmas song. No, I won't be home for Christmas this year. There's nobody here, just me and my dear. I hope and I pray next year will improve, and I'll be on the move back home. Time a year ago was fine indeed. I danced, I traveled, I spent. Last Christmas seems to me a dream. This year was certainly hell sent. So I won't be home for Christmas this year. Sorry for the tears, I know it's hard to hear. Just pull down my stocking, don't bother with the tree. It's Christmas without me, my dear. No, I won't be home for Christmas this year.
At least we've got our health.
Which was the case for another few hours. In the morning, everyone started to stir. Ponyboy was not up and moving with the rest of us.
Hey, what's up, PB? You okay?
No, something stung me in the night. Looks like, maybe a scorpion.
Is it bad?
When Ponyboy removed the blanket from his lower leg, he saw that it had doubled in size.
Oh, not ideal.
This meant that Pony would have to stay behind and someone with him while the rest of us got water. Valentine was chosen, and he began digging through the stuff to find anything edible for dinner later that night. The rest of us went out to collect water with every vessel we could carry. Earp rode the horse there and would fill up the jugs and bottles and then ride back to us, waiting at a halfway point. This cut the amount of walking in half, but it also made for some shadeless idling in the hottest part of the day. We all nearly keeled over from the heat exhaustion by the time we got back to the wagon, and when we did, Ponyboy was gone.
Well, a carriage came through shortly after you left, and seeing our plight, they took pity on old Ponyboy and let him ride shotgun on account of there being just the driver from the company up front. They also left behind a few pieces of jerky and an apple.
We all let out a collective gasp at the sight of an apple. It was decided that it should be cut up 6 ways. I've never known an apple to taste so good.
And all of this out of the charity of their hearts? You know, it's
And
nice to know
I
that some
traded
people...
some things, too.
What did you trade exactly?
Oh, just some things. Trivial stuff, mostly, I'd imagine. Let's see, there was, a couple shirts. And...
Wait, who shirts?
Well, it was like this. I put everyone's stuff out.
Like a doggone marketplace?
Yeah, Earp, like a doggone marketplace. You weren't here, and I had to make sure that Ponyboy got on that wagon, right? So like I was saying, I laid everything out, and they chose some things that they liked the most, which was mostly George's stuff.
How'd I know it? What all you give him, Jed?
Well, 2 shirts, your pomade, your low black Italian boots, your collar tips,
Dog guessed it, chariots of fire!
and your vibra slab.
Well, that was actually my vibra slap. Mulberry traded the other one to the Comancheros.
I'm real sorry, George. They had me by the coin purse, and like I said, Pony was...
No, you're right. Gosh all hemlock, but you're right.
Wish I would have been there. I'd have talked my way onto that stagecoach.
And it wasn't too long before she had the opportunity. What happened next seemed downright providential. Not an hour later, along came a coach, and riding in it was none other than Charlie the Ace, one of the free-for-alls. Ace played bass, but he also played poker, and he was good, too. In fact, he played all sorts of things. You might say he was a general hustler. Anyway, he was supposed to take over for me on the second leg of the tour, and was in fact himself on the way up to Santa Fe from Dallas. After an abbreviated exposition, Ace was caught up with our plight, and seeing how he was good at fixing things, and newly up in the chips, he decided to disembark and help try to fix the wheel, giving up his seat in the coach to sweet Sassy Molassey. And she didn't have to do fairly any convincing at all. When the question of whether there was room for double barrel came up, things got a little trickier. Miss Sweet Molassey, as she introduced herself, was a glad accepted one-for-one trade. Adding DB would mean getting sardined for another day and a half, and the passengers seemed none too keen. However, they were willing to do so if a portion of their fare was covered. Earp ponied up.
Earp, don't you do anything silly now. You all just sit right here and we'll hire a coach to come get the rest of you.
Like heck. With any luck, I'll beat you to Santa Fe.
Please be careful. Fellas, we'll be back in 3 days' time.
4 at the most.
And so they were off. Now Earp's wheels were a-turnin', and Sassy seemed to sense it. One of the passengers made a comment about a train to the north of us that was headed towards Santa Fe. Though there were no stops anywhere close to where we were, Earp couldn't resist the notion of jumping on a train and cutting the travel time to Santa Fe by half or more. He hatched his plan to the rest of us over a very meager dinner, and it seemed ill-advised, to say the least.
Okay, even if you somehow get up enough speed to get onto the train safely, they'll think you're trying to rob the darn
No,
thing.
I'm gonna wave a white flag so that they know I'm peaceable.
Yeah, that's exactly what a bandit would do.
Maybe if you got up to a full gallop just as the train was passing and could grab onto the railing tightly before you jumped off the horse. Someone else would have to be there to grab that horse. 2 people on it would be way too heavy a load to get up to the speed of the train, so you'd have to go it alone.
Fully intend to.
But I still think it's too risky. Plus, I think I can fix that wheel.
They all knew that they were wasting their breath. Earp had already made up his mind.
Well, I'll go with you, if you're going.
I appreciate it, partner.
They sat in silence for a while, watching the wood burn from Ponyboy's piano, which was sacrificed for the good of the whole. The next day, everyone was up early, and Earp and Gorgeous George rode north to try to intercept the speeding locomotive. I was not there to personally witness this, but according to George, this is what happened. Earp and George found the tracks about 5 miles north of the stream where we had found the water. The first train came by after only about 20 minutes of waiting. Earp got the horse up to speed, but missed the handles he was reaching for twice, and the train passed him by. After a few hours, another train came by, and this time Earp was able to hold on to a handle near the back of the train and pull himself off of the horse and onto the car. George made it back to the camp well after dark.
Well, he did it.
You gotta be kidding me, really?
Hopefully they didn't shoot him or throw him off.
What actually happened was far more interesting. According to Earp, as corroborated by the Santa Fe Sentinel, Earp was not greeted by anyone as he boarded the train. If anyone saw him board, they most certainly thought he was a bandit. For you see, the train had been boarded a mere 15 miles east by the murderous Timber Gang. The gang was busy collecting purses and pocketbooks and didn't notice Earp climb aboard. Earp was none the wiser, too. As he flung open the first door and stumbled into the passenger car, he ran right into Will Tiller, the leader of the gang, who, upon turning and meeting Earp's shoulder with his elbow, accidentally discharged his pistol into his own face. The younger of the bandits, seeing this leader now shot through the head, dropped his haul and leapt off the train. A third member of the gang, who became distracted by all of this, was overtaken by some of the other passengers. Interestingly enough, Tiller didn't die. Well, at least not there. They nursed him back to health in town, only to hang him a few days later. That always seemed strange to me. Why would you heal a man only to kill him? Well, the hangman gets paid to work like the rest of us, I suppose. In any case, the newspaper said that Earp overpowered Tiller and shot him himself, but they credited the deed to Wyatt Earp. And since he was already famous at the time, people just assumed that's who saved the day. Wild did get himself a pretty hefty reward, though. But he now had so many expenses from the failed tour that he ended up in debt anyway. Now, 2 earlier predictions did come true. Earp actually did make it to Santa Fe before Sass and DB and Ace did end up fixing that wheel. By the time Earp got cleared by law enforcement and hired a stagecoach to come get us, we were halfway back to Santa Fe. The wheel broke a second time, but we were able to trade the rest of George's clothes, his banjo, and the remaining vibroslap for a spare from a passing coach. And then Earp met us on the road a few hours later. Ain't that the way, though? You know, we all did make it home for Christmas. And even though Sass said she'd never play another show with him again, she joined us on stage for a very special New Year's show.
Thank you, everyone. You know, it's been a tough year, but I'm happy to still be here playing with my pals. I normally like to sing this next one to old DB, but I'm going to change up the lyrics a little bit and dedicate this one to Mr. Wild Earp, who, despite his best efforts, still has a place in my heart. New year, new you. Well, that's cool, that's fine. But if you go changing up, baby, just leave a little the elder behind. Well, I know sometimes I hark at you, and I know sometimes I preach. I know I often set the bar well beyond your dreams. And you say you plan to be a new man, but baby, don't you go too far. 'Cause if you didn't change one hair
Well, hey, Wild Earp here. Just want to say thank you for listening to our little radio program. And to wish you Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season. We'll see you next year. Take care.